Week 6 of the Big 12 football season is all wrapped up. Let's talk about it. Let's react. Let's have a conversation with you. I'm Pete Mundo. Heartland College Sports is where you find us covering the Big 12 Conference. We are coming to you live on a Saturday night because I figured, why not? We don't have one of those late night West Coast games, so I figured I'd hop on here with you early. We'd have a great conversation, have a good time. And let's kick it and talk some Big 12 football because the games are all wrapped up after TCU came back to beat Colorado here on Saturday night. Let's do it. All right, we are going to start off with, to me, the team that is the team to beat in the Big 12 Conference. Before we do that, please make sure that you are subscribed right now to the channel. This channel has blown up this fall because of you sharing it, subscribing it, liking the video. Same thing on the podcast. We are grateful that you are here, as always, as a part of the show. Texas Tech takes care of Houston 35-11. And my big takeaways here, number one, this is Behren Morton's team. If there was ever a doubt, and all week long, Joey McGuire said after Behren Morton got hurt against Utah, Will Hammond came in and had a great game, really pulled Texas Tech away from Utah in that road matchup a couple of weeks ago. But Joey McGuire said, no, this is Behren Morton's team at quarterback. And you know what? Behren Morton got all the snaps and proved that he was the dude on Saturday against the Houston Cougars on the road, scoring on their first 5 drives for the Red Raiders. So this was a big moment for him. If Behren Morton got off to a shaky start, you and I both know the fan base would have been clamoring for Will Hammond. And by the way, I still am not sold on Behren Morton being the better option at quarterback for this team. That's me. Okay, I still would lean Will Hammond QB1, but I get it. Morton's the veteran. It was his team going into the season. He deserves to have this team right now until proven otherwise. But I'm just not convinced yet. That being said, you can't take away from what Behren Morton did on Saturday against a solid, opportunistic Houston defense. 28-40, 345 yards, and a touchdown. And he was clean. He was efficient. And once again, those first 5 drives were really solid for Behren Morton. So he's QB1. He's the guy, okay? The other thing that stood out to me, the other big takeaway is that Tech's a defensive team, baby. I mean, don't get me wrong. The offense is humming, but this team may ultimately go as far as its defense takes it. When's the last time you think you've ever said that about Texas Tech? Did you ever think in your lifetime you'd hear that about Texas Tech? I didn't. I never in a million years thought I'd say that. But here we are. And it all starts up front with the big man in the middle at nose tackle, Lee Hunter. And then you get Jacob Rodriguez, big interception, ton of tackles, just all over the place. But it starts up front with the big man, Lee Hunter, for Texas Tech. Dude is a stud, came over from UCF, and he is just making his presence felt. It's not showing up in the stat sheet, but it's opening up everything else for the rest of that defense. And my goodness, Jacob Rodriguez's wife is now Taylor Swift, huh? I mean, could they show her one more time, please? No, I mean, I'm happy for him. It's totally fine. I'm not bothered by it one bit. But, I mean, I'm watching the game, and it's like, this is like watching a Chiefs game. I'm sitting here in Kansas City. I watch the Chiefs games. We all do. We see Taylor Swift, and Jacob Rodriguez's wife is getting the Taylor Swift treatment here. It's wild. But you know what? All in all, this Tech defense is tremendous, and it was on display on Saturday night. Now, for Houston, I didn't think that Houston looked as bad as the final score may appear it looked. Now, I was all in on Tech minus the 11.5. That was one of my picks for you this week. I loved Texas Tech in this spot. I thought that line was way too low. But the minute you realize Connor Wigman's not coming back and Zeon Chris is the starter, you and I know the game's over. Not that it wasn't over before that, but if it was ever over, yeah, it was over. once Connor Wigman wasn't coming back. But I thought that Houston's defense had a solid bend but don't break approach here that actually worked out okay for them. And it was one of the things that I was watching this game. Houston's defense got demolished in time of possession. Texas Tech had long drives early in that game. Houston's offense couldn't put anything together. They were on the backup quarterback, and the defense kind of just held its own. And if you're a Houston fan, you're in year 2 of Willie Fritz, you got to feel good about the direction of this program. I believe that Tech is going to do what they did to Houston to a lot of teams across the Big 12 the rest of the season. They did it to Utah. They've done it to Houston. And I think that they are going to do it to most teams in the Big 12. But if you're a Houston fan, believe you look at that game and you say, okay, I see reason for progress and optimism. You just hope that Connor Wigman, who left with an upper body injury late in the first half, is back sooner rather than later. So Texas Tech is the team to beat in the Big 12 right now. They proved that again on Saturday. And until proven otherwise, it's that team. And then there's a second tier in the Big 12 Conference. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Glad you're here. Please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Let's roll with, next up, Kansas UCF, one of the other late games on Saturday in the Big 12. So Kansas came back from 14-0 down. They end up beating UCF on the road. Some controversy late in that game. UCF's trying to go down the field and tie the game. First off, at the goal line, you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, I didn't think UCF got in, but at the same time, they never gave us a very good look on the goal line. What was that all about? We never got a great look at the goal line as to what exactly happened when UCF was trying to punch it in on a 4th and goal from a yard out. Now, I thought the play calls there were weak. Using Cam Fancher, your third-string quarterback, on a Jalen Hurts-style rugby play is not the play there. It's not. You knew that Kansas was going to load the box on you and basically try to make you beat them. Be creative. Do something. I mean, Cam Fancher, that was the most half-assed Jalen Hurts-esque rugby run I've ever seen on that first down. And then a couple of plays later, they got a 4th and goal, and same thing. They come close. They didn't get in, but they never gave us a good replay. I was blown away by that. Terrible job by ESPN there, not giving us a good replay, a good look on the 4th and goal from UCF down the sideline and show us what the heck happened there. I was stunned by it. Not that I thought it was a touchdown for UCF, but I assume UCF's guys had a good look at it, but no one showed it on TV. I mean, I felt like I was back in 1952 trying to watch something on the big screen there. Can I get a look at this thing? My goodness. So that was just strange to me. But for Kansas, this was a weird game. It was almost a tale of two halves for Kansas, because I'm watching them and I'm like, man, this defense just can't figure it out. UCF goes down on the first 2 drives of the game and goes touchdown. And Taven Jackson's looking good. Miles Montgomery's doing whatever he wants. They tack on a couple of field goals. I mean, UCF offensively was doing whatever it wanted in that first half. And then the second half comes around and UCF goes scoreless over the third and the fourth quarters. And it was like a totally different team. Now, Taven Jackson left the game, but this was before Taven Jackson left the game. And it looked like he took a big hit on that sprained non-throwing shoulder AC joint that he banged up last week that nearly caused him to miss this game. He was in a lot of pain. That was difficult to watch. And then Cam Fancher comes in, your third stringer, and, he exceeded expectations. They weren't all that high, to be honest, but he exceeded whatever expectations I had for him. But it was really about Kansas's defense locking down. I didn't think that UCF did anything drastically wrong on the defensive side as that game went along. They're not a big defense, but they're scrappy and they're fast. And early in the season, there wasn't anything I liked. I shouldn't say it. That's too strong of a way to put it. There was not a lot that I liked about this UCF defense when I watched them like week 1 against Jacksonville State. But now they're not the biggest guys. They're not the hardest hitters, but they're scrappy and they're fast. And that was working for them on and off throughout this game against Kansas. But, for this Kansas team, they finally got in somewhat of an offensive rhythm as this game was going along. And that's what made the difference for KU against UCF. And that's why they were able to get it done. And, Jalen Daniels did what he has done basically all season long. He didn't do a ton with his legs. UCF did a good job keeping him relatively in check with his legs, but he was effective through the air. He spread the ball around very well. He had 7 wide receivers catch a pass. Emmanuel Henderson had some really big plays down the field. So all in all, it wasn't one of KU's great offensive performances, but it was enough. And they came back on the road in the Big 12. That is tough to do. When you're sitting there down 14-0, and then you put together that 9-play, 75-yard drive, I believe it was, in the second quarter for the Jayhawks. That was it right there. That got this thing back on track. That brought back that confidence for KU. And that is exactly what they needed in that moment. And then the second half, obviously, listen, when you get a gift like a Taven Jackson fumble, Trey Lanthan jumps on it, and then you score a play later from 2 yards out, and that's your go-ahead touchdown. I mean, that's obviously the ball game right there. I mean, it wasn't the ball game, but in many ways, it was a huge turn of events going into the fourth quarter that completely changed the makeup of that game and changed how both sides of the ball and both these teams felt about this game. It took a lot of the wind out of the sails of UCF trying to pull off this upset at home in front of the home crowd. And for KU, it was a huge sigh of relief. And then the fourth quarter, KU's offense didn't really do much, but it didn't have to because that's when that defense stepped up in a way that it hadn't in a while. And that defense got roasted, rightfully so, following that Cincinnati game last week. And this time they turned things around and they played a really good game. At least in the fourth quarter, they played a really good quarter on Saturday. And then, of course, there also was some drama about whether or not there was pass interference on that final drive for UCF against KU. Can you throw the flag there? Probably. Not going to lie. You can probably throw that flag there. I'm not going to be upset if UCF gets that pass interference on KU on the final drive, and that keeps that drive alive. Doesn't mean they're guaranteed to score, but, I would not have been upset with that flag being thrown there. I thought it would have been deserved against KU. Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel on heartlandcollegesports.com. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, where do we want to go next? Okay, let's go to, how about Cincinnati beating Iowa State 38-30, a top 15 win for the Bearcats. My question, is Cincinnati this year's Arizona State in the Big 12? Arizona State was picked dead last year in the preseason poll. They end up winning the conference. There was no preseason poll this year in the Big 12, basically because of Arizona State embarrassing everyone last year. So now I'm looking at the Cincinnati team. I didn't think they'd be a top half of the Big 12 kind of a team, but they don't just look like that. They look like a team that could be destined for Big 12 competition. Dare I say, a trip to Arlington when all is said and done. That's what they look like to me after how they played against Iowa State on Saturday in that 38-30 victory. They were up 31-15. Iowa State kind of made it a game in the second half, but you never really felt like Iowa State was going to come back to win that one on Saturday. Cincinnati was better in the trenches. They were bigger. They were tougher. They ran the ball better. They had the better quarterback in this game. They had the better running backs in this game. They had the better coach in this game. I was blown away. And maybe I shouldn't have been because I saw them do what they did last week to KU. But I thought to myself, this is Iowa State. This is a perennial Big 12 contender. That's what Matt Campbell has built the program into. And yeah, they were banged up in the secondary and they had some issues there. No doubt about it. But you know what? If I was going to look to Cincinnati to win a game of this caliber, I'm sorry, I was going to have to see it to believe it. I have seen Scott Satterfield for 2.5 seasons up until last week basically lose to every team that he was expected to lose to. And while I know he was a slight favorite in this game, I didn't buy it. And I was wrong. And he proved me wrong, and he proved a lot of us wrong. And Cincinnati doesn't just look like a team that's got a little nice story developing here. They look like a Big 12 contender. They were pushing around Iowa State with that offensive line. The defensive line was really stout against Iowa State on Saturday. And that is not something that I expected to see against the Cyclones, who are solid in the trenches. Not amazing, but Iowa State is very solid in the trenches. And you got a Cincinnati team that just jammed them all over the place. And you want to talk about the difference in this game? Cincinnati ran for 7.6 yards a carry. And by the way, that number was well over 8 before those last couple of drives. Iowa State rushed for 4 yards a carry. Evan Pryor is a guy I have been watching carefully since week 1 against Nebraska. And he didn't have a big game, but he had some really nice runs. And I'm like, I like this guy. He's an Ohio State transfer, goes down the road to Cincinnati, and he had himself a game on Saturday, man. Evan Pryor, 10 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11.1 yards per carry for Evan Pryor. You combine that with how Brendan Sorsby is slinging the ball around. Not a huge day through the air, 13 to 25, 214, 2 touchdowns, but a QBR of 85 plus. And you got an offense that's doing whatever it wants. You have a defense that is keeping a team like Iowa State in relative check. Rocco Beck did not look like himself. He was inconsistent. He was under pressure. And that's a team right there. When you look ahead to what Cincinnati has left, that is a team that's going to enter November in contention to get to a Big 12 championship game. They've got a nice schedule here coming up for Cincinnati. You look at it, UCF at home, at Oklahoma State, home to Baylor. Then you go to the month of November, and it's at Utah. That's a game-changing moment potentially there for Cincinnati going on the road. And you wrap it up with Arizona, BYU, and TCU. Cincinnati fans should absolutely be sitting there with one ranked team technically left on the schedule and saying, why can't we go to Arlington? Now, I know Utah is not a ranked team, but that's going to be a tough game on the road. But technically, only BYU is left on the schedule currently as a ranked team. Cincinnati officially has to be the team that we are not talking enough about in the Big 12 and across college football for that matter. And that was a statement game on Saturday against Iowa State. And that defense, John Haycock, who I love, but John Haycock in that first half didn't have any answer. And his defense was getting pushed around. I know they were down 2 guys in the secondary that got banged up and were out for the game and out for a while, but no excuses. That was so impressive, and it's more about what Cincinnati was able to do in this game. Subscribe, Heartland College Sports. I'm Pete Mundo. We cover the Big 12. Glad you are here, as always, as a part of the show. We will go to Fort Worth, where TCU came back to beat Colorado 35-21 on Saturday night. Wasn't pretty. I just mentioned Rocco Beck. It was not pretty for Josh Hoover, but he did enough. Got it done. 35-21 win over Colorado. And if you're TCU, you're just happy to get out of there with a win. They threw on a garbage touchdown late, which is crazy because it covers the spread. I mean, in my week 6 preview, it wasn't one of my official picks, but I said I like TCU just to cover. Once again, I'm not taking credit for a pick that wasn't one of my official picks. I'm just saying I like TCU to cover the 2 touchdowns. It was like 13.5, and they get the cover, which is just nuts. Just crazy. They had no business covering the spread. They were not 14 points better than Colorado, but that's college football for you. Okay? But TCU was not great. TCU's got to figure out a running game here. They just can't get it going on the ground. Under 3 yards a carry again against a Colorado team that is okay, but not all that stout up front at all. TCU entered the game bottom 4 in the Big 12 in rushing yards per game and rushing yards per carry. They were going up against a Colorado team that was second worst in rushing yards allowed per game, and they couldn't get it going against Colorado. That is a terrible sign. Josh Hoover was off on Saturday night. He cannot win you every game. This team and this offense is going to become predictable. And you saw some of that. And you saw them overthink it at times too. And that was frustrating if you were a TCU fan. You're watching this game and you're like, okay, early in the game, they get it down towards the goal line. It ends up with a missed field goal. But my goodness, you're sitting there down basically near the goal line and you're spreading out your offensive line. I mean, it's total slop all over the place. It throws off the rest of the drive. You miss a field goal. It was a mess. You're going to look at a box score and say, oh, TCU must have had a good night against Colorado. TCU really didn't have a good night against Colorado at all. TCU didn't play a very clean game or a good game for that matter. But, you know, the box score tells you it's a 2-touchdown victory. Nothing about this game felt like a 2-touchdown victory for TCU. It wasn't. And while Colorado had a lot of mistakes in this game, you know, I mean, obviously the one that stands out is the punt by TCU that lands on a Colorado player, gets recovered by TCU. And we all know what happens coming out of that. But it was very difficult to watch. This was really an ugly game across the board. I didn't think either team played all that well. I didn't think either team deserved to win it for different reasons. But if you're Colorado, you probably have some reasons for optimism, even though it's a 2-touchdown loss. So if you're Deion Sanders, if you're Colorado, I wouldn't hang your head over this one. I think for TCU as well, there had to be, at least for the coaching staff, at least for Sonny Dykes, you had to think back to 2 years ago when Colorado was still in the Pac-12. First game for Deion Sanders, TCU was a 3-touchdown favorite in that game, and Colorado won it outright. If you're a TCU fan, you remember it very well. It opened up the college football season in week 1 of 2023. And there was some revenge, I think, for certain people on the staff, maybe a couple of guys who were still on the team from that game. But the takeaway here is that TCU continues to seem like the team that plays up and plays down the competition. And that's not, frankly, the kind of team that Sonny Dykes should want to have. Because he's playing Arizona State great on the road last Friday. And then he's got a dud against a very mediocre at best Colorado team, and they just can't get anything going, and they're getting beat on the lines at times. That's inexcusable. Colorado's been pushed around on the line all season long, and you guys were struggling with them at times. That just can't happen. So that, from the standpoint of TCU, they're 4-1. They're now 1-1 in the Big 12. Colorado is 2-4 and 0-3. But that's not a game if you're a TCU fan. You come out feeling like we got a lot better on Saturday. We got a lot to look forward to. That game and the way it went doesn't do it for you if you're a TCU fan. So there you go on that one. Where do we want to go next? All right, we got 2 more Saturdays and a Friday to talk about here. Let's do it. All right, let's go to this game. Baylor beat Kansas State 35-34. My first question is, Baylor fans, why are you embarrassing yourselves by either leaving the game early or not showing up? I know you're down 2 touchdowns at one point here in this game, but if you didn't see the videos and the pictures, nobody was in McLean Stadium for a large part of the second half. I mean, you would have thought that this was week 12 and Baylor sitting there at 0-11. They were 3-2. They were 1-1 in the Big 12. They're a team that can still get to a Big 12 championship game, which means they can still get to a college football playoff. And McLean Stadium was empty. And don't tell me, oh, it's hot out. Stop. It's Waco, Texas. You're all used to the heat. Stop with that. I thought the fan support and display was pathetic. I couldn't believe what I was seeing on TV watching this game. And the good news for Baylor is you won the game. Kansas State was pathetic on the field in the second half. They blow a 2-touchdown lead. And what Kansas State fans are talking about is the clock management or lack thereof. So a couple of times, first off, the interception about the 4-minute mark by Avery Johnson. I'm not going to jump on Matt Wells for that one. I'm not going to do it there. And I'll explain why. Avery Johnson, the play before, had just had a very solid completion for a first down. He decides to go back to Avery through the air. I don't have an issue with that one. Avery was having a good drive. He overall had a pretty good game. But then he throws this huge interception. That was a game changer in the game with about, 4 minutes left, and it really turned the game upside down. That's an Avery Johnson issue. Avery Johnson in that spot has got to know as a second-year starter, I can't force a throw. I can't be falling back on my right foot, force a throw over the middle, and think that this is going to end well for me. That is a redshirt freshman mistake, a true freshman mistake. That's not a mistake for a guy that's a year and a half into being the starting quarterback and really in his third year playing Power 4 football. That was an Avery Johnson mistake, not a Matt Wells mistake there. And I know that Kansas State fans are not in love with Matt Wells, and you have every reason to feel that way. I get it. I'm not going to sit here and be Matt Wells's biggest defender. I won't do it, I promise you. But at the same time, that one to me, that interception by Avery Johnson in that second half is not the thing that I'm going to look at and say that was on Matt Wells. That was just as easily potentially on Avery Johnson. I believe that was more on Avery Johnson than it was on Matt Wells. But if you're a Kansas State fan and you're sitting there and you're saying, all right, what do we do? Where did we lose this game? Under 2 minutes left. You got the ball. You're down inside the Baylor 10-yard line. And what do? Down by 1. You know you're getting at least a field goal. You have 2 passes from Avery Johnson that fall incomplete. That take a total of 9 seconds off the clock. That gives Baylor the opportunity to get the ball back. They got almost 2 minutes on the clock. They take it down the field, and they win the game. That is where you can get on Matt Wells. That is where you can say Matt Wells, as the offensive coordinator for Kansas State football, did not do a good job. That is totally fair to jump on Matt Wells in that spot. That's on him. That's on the coaching staff. You got to understand, man, we've got this field goal locked up. Right now, our time management and the clock has to be a factor here, and it wasn't in that spot for Kansas State, and it cost them dearly. Baylor had all the time in the world. They have an amazing offense led by Sawyer Robertson, a veteran guy at quarterback, and you felt that Baylor was going to basically take this thing down the field. Kansas State's defense didn't have a great afternoon, and a lot of defenses are going to struggle against Baylor. That's how good Sawyer Robertson is. So it's just that is the one where you jump on the OC. and you say to yourself, man, that is a very difficult spot for Kansas State's offense to screw up as royally as they did. And that's exactly what happened there for the Kansas State Wildcats on Saturday. So now Kansas State is 2-4 overall, 1-2 in the Big 12. Baylor's 4-2 and 2-1. And Kansas State is 13 points away from being 6-0. That is unbelievable. But a lot of that has been self-inflicted, and that's why it's hard to have a lot of sympathy. Let me make sure I have that. I put that stat up on our Facebook page and also on our X page. You can find it there. Just search Heartland College Sports. Follow us on Instagram, on X, and on Facebook. And on TikTok. We're on there too if you want to check us out there. But when I saw that, I was like, man, that is horrible. It's almost worse than just getting blown out, right? Because in some ways, when you're getting smoked, if like you're West Virginia, you're like, hey, man, it's all about next year. When you're Kansas State and you're seeing your team lose 4 games by a combined 13 points, that stinks. And that's what this Wildcats team has dealt with so far this season. And Baylor's been in a lot of close games. You know, it's been a lot of tight, close games for the Baylor Bears. But they're doing okay. And you know what? Baylor's got everything in front of it that it wants to achieve this season. I have a lot of concerns about that defense. I mean, the first touchdown from Kansas State, every game I've watched Baylor in against decent competition, they are getting gashed up the middle. I mean, just absolutely smoked. And that first Avery Johnson touchdown, 25-yarder, case in point. Field was wide open in front of him. This is Dave Aranda's bread and butter. That's his side of the ball, man. He's got to get that thing figured out. Whew. They've got the offense. The question is, what about the defense? Arizona rolling Oklahoma State 41-13. Noah Fafita, 700, felt like 700 yards, 376 passing yards, 5 touchdowns in 3 quarters. Oklahoma State is just decimated. Guys are hitting the portal left and right. There appears to be no juice. There's not a lot to say about this game. I can't find you a bright spot. I can't sit here and say this was impressive, that was impressive. I just can't do it. And for Arizona, I don't want to overreact either and be like, hey, Arizona, you guys got something going there in Tucson. Oklahoma State's just that bad right now. They showed a little life last week against Baylor. It was in Stillwater, home crowd, week after Gundy gets blown out. Saturday, they looked like a shell of that team. It was ugly, early, and often. And if you're Arizona, feel good about yourself. I'm not saying you shouldn't celebrate. I'm not saying you shouldn't look at that game and say, hey, you know what? We can build off of that. You absolutely can build off of that. You should feel like you can build off of that. I'm just saying I'm not going to look at that game as someone who's watching a lot of Big 12 and be like, you know what? That Arizona team, based on what they did to Oklahoma State, they're dangerous. No, I can't do it. I can't. I still got to see the running game get something going. I mean, that's been frustrating to watch at times for Arizona. And, you know, you'd like to see them get it going against Oklahoma State of all teams. They couldn't do it. And for the Cowboys, you know, I wanted to see Zane Flores air it out a little bit. He tried at times, but he just wasn't all that good doing it. And his wide receivers didn't give him much to work with either. So it was just ugly all around. And there is not much to like about where Oklahoma State is going right now and what this program is all about. And until they figure out who's going to be leading it, I can't see that changing anytime soon. I can't. We did have a Friday game. BYU demolished West Virginia 38-24. The backdoor cover. Oh, the backdoor. So I woke up when the game was over, my wife was out with a couple of friends. She comes home. I'm asleep in bed in the second half. She wakes me up. I stay up for a few minutes. I fall asleep again. I wake up. I see the score, and I said, that's a backdoor cover. That's got to be a backdoor cover. And that's exactly what it was for West Virginia. It was a backdoor cover. It happens. It's a bad beat. We'll all live, okay? We're all going to be okay. But it was a bad beat. It was a backdoor cover. BYU dominated this game, start to finish. Bear Bachmeier threw for a career high. Chase Roberts had a career high receiving yards. BYU ceiling is the Big 12 championship, let's be very clear. And Bear Bachmeier, as I predicted in week 1, has a higher ceiling than Jake Retzlaff. And if he continues to develop and progress the way he is, BYU can find itself playing for a Big 12 championship and in a college football playoff because of that defense with the way the offense is coming along. And that's what we got on Friday night in this game from the BYU Cougars, 38-24. Martin had 21 carries, 90 rushing yards, and a couple of scores. And, man, it was a lot of fun to watch BYU on a Friday night. I felt for you, West Virginia fans. You got to stay up till 10:30 on the East Coast to watch this game. And then you feel like it's getting out of hand real fast, real early, which it did. But you're not the only team that's going to happen to against BYU. BYU is the real deal. And whether it's Bachmeier through the air, Bachmeier on the ground, he had another rushing touchdown. He's got one of those every single game, it seems like. Parker Kingston had a career game, 111 receiving yards as well. And the defense did what it's done all season long. Held WVU to 3.3 yards a carry. That's what they do. It was domination from BYU. And they are absolutely in that tier 2 of Big 12 contenders. Right now, the Big 12 contenders are at the top, Texas Tech. Texas Tech is in its own class as a Big 12 contender right now. That tier 2 includes BYU, Iowa State, Arizona State, Utah, and I will put Baylor into that conversation for the time being. That's that tier 2 right now when you look around the Big 12 conference. But BYU is in the thick of that, and they deserve to be in the thick of that based on how they've been playing so far this season. Heck, they may be in the top part of that second tier in the Big 12, but they're absolutely in it. And every week they're giving me a reason to be more impressed and to buy more BYU stock as this season continues to move along. And I will also throw Cincinnati in there. Sorry, I knew I was forgetting somebody. I will absolutely throw Cincinnati in there. I knew somebody was off the list. I'm doing this on the fly. I don't have any notes in front of me. I'm just letting it rip. And I knew I was forgetting somebody. Thank you for catching it with Cincinnati. There you go. I'm Pete Mundo. Heartland College Sports is how you find us covering the Big 12 Conference. All right, let me leave you with a thought here that is not Big 12 related, but I think you will get a kick out of this. Okay? We're all on the same page. Ready for this? I threw this up on Instagram. Follow us there, Heartland College Sports. So if you missed it, number 9, Texas lost to unranked Florida 29-21. So I would expect that Texas will drop to number 10 in the poll and Florida will move up to number 5. Because that's how this works, right? That's my prediction. You heard it here first. Number 9, Texas loses to unranked Florida. Florida goes to 5. Texas falls to 10. Bookmark it. I'm just so sick of the nonsense. I'm so sick of the BS. I know many of you are as well. It's just exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And speaking of ridiculous rankings, can we stop with Penn State? Okay. Penn State has wins this season thus far over an FCS program, a Mountain West team, and one from Conference USA. This team has no business being ranked. Do you think the voters have the stones of the brains to do it? I don't. But Penn State should not be a ranked team. It's not about what you thought was going to happen back in July or August. It's about what's gone on the field thus far this season. And as we approach the halfway mark, Penn State has beaten an FCS team, a Mountain West team, and a Conference USA team. Enough. Stop with the ranking of Penn State. They have not earned it or deserved it on the field. And it's the biggest issue that voters across the country make time and time again. Make the polls about what you've actually done, not what you think a team might do this season when you're reading preview magazines back in July on the beach or at the lake. Stop. Rant over. Pete Mundo, HeartlandCollegeSports.com. Find us there. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel as well and our podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there for you. We've got so much content coming your way this week. Make sure you're subscribed with us at Heartland College Sports. We'll see you on the free forums as well on the website. Have a great day. Go Big 12. Week 6 is in the books.